Hello, everyone. Welcome to another webinar that we are doing for students who are aspirants for study abroad. If you are aspiring to do a degree abroad, you are at the right place. I am Dr. Maina Chawla Singh. I have been a professor both in India and in other countries. I have lectured in France and Israel, in other parts of Europe. And the last stint has been 9 years of teaching in universities in America, especially at American University, Washington, DC, and at Georgetown. So I bring to you in these webinars an educator's perspective. You have counselors who help you, and then there are professors who have helped you and who will be your professors when you go to study abroad at the other end. So I bring you perspectives from the other end, and I have done sessions on how best to project yourself through your application process, how to do your CV building in such a way that you project the best brand of yourself, how to cope with the pre-departure anxieties, and many other things. You will find my videos on the Leverage Edu channel. You can reach all of us. You can reach Leverage Edu through all the social media handles. Leverage Edu is a top-ranking university admissions service in this country, and it has helped thousands of students who aspire to study abroad to be able to reach their dream colleges and destinations in many parts of the world, including the UK, USA, Australia, Europe, and many other places. I just interviewed an alum who is now in Hong Kong and somebody else who has reached Ireland. So we help many, many students to go to wherever they want to, and we are by their side as they progress towards their destinations through the applications and through the admits that they receive. So I'm hosting this webinar today on a subject which is very close to my heart, and that is about PhD. I feel that many of the resources that are available online and many webinars that are done are targeted at students who are not at the PhD level, but less than that, short of that, doing masters or maybe even undergrad. And I want to say that having been through the journey myself and having done a PhD and then published the dissertation and then written another book and multiple articles published in peer-reviewed journals, I know how difficult that research journey is. And it actually begins from the time that you write your research proposal. So a few days ago, I did a session live on the PhD process as a generic thing. The first one, that session, and now I'm doing another one. I hope to do a series of them. Do get in touch with us, and on the basis of your feedback, we will do more of these. So today I'm focusing on the social sciences and policy studies, because a lot of students will be going, professionals will be going for degrees in sciences, in data sciences, in other aspects of science or tech. And I do want to say that we have certain specific unique tips for you if you are studying the social sciences or if you are interested in a PhD in the social sciences. You have to start thinking more broadly and start thinking in terms of disciplines where there is a crisscrossing so that you can produce really rich research that people are interested in. If people are interested in your research, you will get a top professor to supervise it. You will get the networking, you will get the fellowships, you will get the research assistantships, and you will get the teaching assistantships. And that is how you build your employability. So I want to say this is what I'm focusing on today. So let me begin with a few of the basics, which is that the social sciences is really, really broad. It does in some ways include also the humanities, because no one does pure literature research anymore. It is in connection with the society in which it was produced, issues with gender, issues with language, issues with the society in which it was produced, whether it was colonial, post-colonial, modern, etc., etc. So you end up having a crisscrossing of many of those disciplines, even if you're working in the humanities. The social sciences will include parts of the humanities. It will include history, sociology, anthropology, cultural studies, migration studies, community development, environment studies, political science, governance, anything. So I want to tell you that to begin, when you look at social sciences or think about it, think about a PhD, you must think in very, very broad terms. It doesn't even have to be a cross-cutting of 2 disciplines. It can be multiple disciplines. Your methodology can vary depending on those disciplines. Let's say a little bit about the duration. You know, most of you, if you are thinking of a PhD, you would know that it takes 4 to 5 years. Your eligibility is based on direct applications. Your research proposal is the most important component. Unlike your degrees in masters or at the undergraduate level, where your SOP is really important and your other aspects of the application are very important, here your research proposal is the first important core thing. If you have a research proposal that is 5 or 6 or 10 pages, from that you will pull out your SOP. It won't be a problem. But when you write a good SOP, you will not be able to pull out a research proposal from it. So I want to say this is the one big difference in doing that PhD application process. Now about destinations. This is not where I'm focusing today. Your destinations can be any of those countries that you're thinking about, but don't forget to think of countries like Germany, Singapore, Israel. Depending on the subject that you're looking at, be a little unique about where you're going to look to do those, because you might come up with a very, very different set of solutions or set of findings. For example, if you did a PhD with a professor in Israel, you would have a very different take on security studies or cybersecurity than you would in many other countries. So I want to say that's the little brief thing about destination. But destination is something that you work with your counselors, and when you get in touch with us, that's a longer conversation that we can have as you decide on the program and on the university. I want to say something now about employability. As I said at the beginning, there will be people who will tell you that there is a very narrow segment of the employment options that you might have. You can become a civil servant, you can become a public rights activist, social worker, NGO worker, etc. I want to tell you, this is just a very narrow way of looking at it. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you why. So let me come to the real stuff, which is the key for you if you're thinking of a PhD in the social sciences is think about what are you doing? What are your ideas about your subject? What is the topic? Is the topic stuck in one particular discipline? Are you thinking in cross-disciplinarity? All the useful knowledge today is about problem solving. You know that. Whether it's about politics or education or health, as we have seen in the last few months, the problem solving is the fundamental core of why knowledge is pursued. People do research to find new solutions, either to old problems, better solutions, or new solutions for new problems. But problem solving remains at the heart of good, excellent research. If you're doing a PhD, you clearly love the knowledge. If you don't love gathering knowledge, you're in the wrong place. But whether it's business or politics, I want to say all aspects need research. Even a candidate standing for elections needs very, very good research. What do all the pollsters do? They do research to be able to predict what will be the outcomes. For business, research is what tells them people are going to buy something or not buy something. Consumer behavior is based on research. Businesses cannot function without it. Research of this kind is done by social scientists. That data is also collected about attitudes. It's not just a yes or no. So I'm trying to make you think really broadly and deeply about how social sciences is really an important aspect and a backbone that feeds into many aspects of research and business. So if you are going to stand out, what are the questions that you are investigating? Your research questions about your topic need to be stimulating. They need to be smart. They need to be creative. They need to be different. If you're not asking questions, your investigation is just going to be flat. The more complex your questions, the more exciting is going to be your research journey, and the more complex and multi-layered your findings. So basically, your solutions or your findings will depend upon the questions that you frame. So I want to take you back all the time to say how important your research proposal is. And for that research proposal, how important it is for you to think creatively. I'm now going to give you a few examples with some university programs that exist for PhDs. For example, UC Irvine, University of California, Irvine has a program for PhD in mathematical behavioral science. What does that tell us? That there is mathematics there, there's quantitative stuff, but there is behavioral science. Clearly, there's psychology, there's a study of behavior, of attitudes, and that is based on qualitative research. So those of you who are thinking about PhD, you would know that your methodology is very important for the findings that you're going to have. And so this should tell you how complex your research proposals can be when you're applying to a program like that. Let me take a few more. Stanford has a program in interdisciplinary social sciences and humanities. So that's a broad umbrella. You can actually offer a proposal mixing and blending and crisscrossing any of the disciplines that you wish to. And I will give you some more examples as I go along. Environment and community development is another one of those programs that exists in many different places. Now, environment and community development, actually, look at environment studies. Where does that come from? Some of science, some of geography, some of geology. Community development comes from sociology, some of economics. And so you can actually borrow elements from all of those. University of Wisconsin-Madison has a program in education policy studies. Just think of how important that would be for jobs in India, not just as a researcher, but not just in the Department of Education, but in so many different areas, think tanks and other places, even in media, they would want research on education policy because there is so much to talk and write about education policy. If you were to do a program abroad, you could do a comparative study on something that you know in India or something you can find out in India and of the country in which you are. So again, there is a lot of scope to be able to deepen that. There is a PhD in linguistics in UC, University of California, Santa Barbara, which is on quantitative methods. So there you go. If somebody has done language and literature, they could do a PhD in linguistics with quantitative methods. How important would that be? That would be important also for language policy and for many other aspects where you can be employed. There are lots of very good programs for public policy. PhD in public policy is an excellent program at George Washington University in Washington, DC in America. Why is that an important hub for policy? Because in Washington, DC is where the policy is made, not just for all of America, which is more than 50 states, but also we know that American foreign policy making has repercussions on many other countries. So if you were to do a public policy and administration PhD, it would be wonderful to create something that is comparative. A PhD in education, University of Bath has an excellent program in the UK on PhD in education. I've already mentioned to you how a PhD in education can help you to look at job opportunities and research and publications in many different ways. In Europe, I want you to think of universities like Heidelberg University, which is an excellent center for multidisciplinary research. Heidelberg, Heidelberg. If you're interested in Australia, look up the University of Sydney. So I want to now go right back after these examples to say something more about the cross-disciplinarity aspect of a PhD. If you're thinking about it, this is the time that you need to think across disciplines. As you know, employability is even more than before to do with cross-disciplinarity. For example, anything related to health and education, resettling, migration, all of those have become really important areas. But you know, all of those cannot be studied in their single discipline perspective. So for example, health is related to issues of population, of nutrition, of urban development, and so many other disciplines that can be brought in. Similarly, when you look at education, it could be so many different things. It could be the impact of a certain policy of education, the impact on K through 12, which is school education or university education, or the impact on international education, the impact of international education on global movements, on immigration, on so many different things. So education by itself can be blended with so many other disciplines to ask the right questions. You can even talk about the issue of scale. What is the reach of education? Why is certain kinds of education not as impactful? What is the importance of skilling? How can policy change to create scalability, to be able to cover more segments of the population? So for example, if you're interested in politics and governance, you could be looking at policy studies in many different ways. You can look at the role and the status of minorities. How do policies affect the life and well-being of minorities? You can look at religious minorities, you can look at the issue of caste, you can look at tribal issues, and if you are doing a study abroad PhD, you can do a comparative study. I know a student who worked on the indigenous populations of Australia and worked on a comparative study of that with tribal communities in Northeast India. So there is so much that you can get out of a comparative PhD, where you can bring in a certain perspective, unique perspective, because you belong to a certain culture and a certain geography. And the professors at the other end are very excited to be able to broaden what they know and what they read about. And therefore you go in as a budding expert, and then you come out with a PhD that is rich with solutions about policy making. What is the impact of certain kinds of policies? Let me give you another example. For example, internet regulation is a very big thing today. It commands a lot of cachet for jobs and generally for employability. This is a subject that you can look at in terms of sociology, in terms of education, in terms of child development, because internet regulation has come in for all kinds of analyses. It is also related to free speech and rights of individual freedom. So you can basically look at child development and psychology and internet regulation. You can look at internet regulation in relation to education studies, social issues. You can look at political issues and what that regulation does. There's also the idea here of data. There's a lot of debate these days about what happens to our data that is mined by all these platforms where we use their services. I want to now take on a subject like geography. You might think, what is the scope with that? Well, environment studies, climate change, ecology. They're all related to community development. They're also related to urban planning. They're related to architecture. They are related to disaster management. They are related to food security, water security, conservation. So you can look at how so many different aspects of very, very current topics can be blended in to create a very rich research proposal. I'm excited about doing this. I did research and I also thought about it, and I look forward to all of you signing up or just getting in touch with us through any of our social media handles to have longer conversations about this. So let me come back. Today, even Google, Facebook, Tesla, LinkedIn, all of them need people who have a background in the social sciences. And I've just explained to you how. Because if you are looking at the sociological aspects of people's behavior, people's attitudes, why they buy certain things, why they use certain services, even tech needs social sciences, because tech is useless if it's not looking at the people who use it. And who are the users? They are consumers, they have behaviors, they have choices, they have agency, they have attitudes. And that's where, as a social scientist, you can bring in many, many different, very important and useful aspects to the research, regardless of the subject that you are thinking about or the subject that you have graduated in. It's also my intention to make you think a little bit beyond, out of the box, so that if you have a degree in a particular subject and you say, what do I do with this? I'm just giving you many, many examples of what you can do with it. So even machine learning, if you think about it, it learns its lessons from human behavior. So behavioral sciences are extremely important. Now, depending on the subject, and I want to keep emphasizing this, that, depending on the subject that you choose, and depending on how you can show multiple layers and crisscrossings of multidisciplinarity, that research proposal will get chosen above others, because it will read very interesting to your professors. On the basis of that, you will get your research assistant jobs because you're doing something different and something exciting. Similarly, your teaching assistant jobs will come out of that. So I want to say that there's a great opportunity here when you think of multidisciplinarity in the social sciences and for policy studies, that you can actually build yourself a really fantastic CV when you finish a PhD like that. Your internships can be of different kinds. You will build very, very good connections. The more you're able to crisscross your disciplines and broaden and deepen your disciplinary thinking, the better will be your own research and what your findings emerge out to be. Your networks and connections that you gather through it are going to be the really important things that take you forward. So the PhD that you do in social sciences is not at all limited, in the sense that you have very few, people might have told you that you have very few choices. In this session, I have shown you that there are many, many companies and businesses who all employ people with social science backgrounds. Everybody wants to know how gender matters. There are gender specialists in every corporation. There are issues of equity and inclusiveness. That is all social sciences. It's not pure sciences. So all of those things, think about how that can be done. There are also many scholarships. Funding is much easier for a PhD. More about that, you can reach out to us. I am available on LinkedIn. You can find me. Social media handles, all of the social media handles, you'll find Leverage Edu. We have a 30-minute free counseling session that you can avail of. After which, if you decide to sign up, throughout your journey from the time that you discuss your proposal with us or your ideas, even before your proposal is done, we are here to help you to declutter, to think creatively. And I hope that today's session has given you an idea of how we can help you to take that process forward, is to make you think broadly, to declutter your mind, to pick the best ideas and help you to frame them so that then your journey begins to do the application process. There are counselors who will help you through that all the way, identifying programs, helping you to prepare those papers and send them and make sure that you reach the destination that is optimum for whatever you are doing and whatever you're dreaming of. So on that note, I want to say thank you very much for being with us. We are very excited if you're doing a PhD, and if you're excited too, join us. We'd love to see you. So Leverage Edu says goodbye, and we hope to see you again in a few days. Thank you.